Welcome in to the Week 15 edition of the Instant Review Podcast, where we discuss all things NFL, all things news, injury reports, fantasy football, and our upcoming game predictions, and much, much more. It's Christmas week, and with that, a lot of teams are looking for a Christmas gift this weekend in the terms of a win and a further step into the playoffs, while other teams will receive a stocking of coal and perhaps a ticket to the off season. So a lot to unpack here in tonight's episode. I'm your host, Nicholas Hill. Joining me tonight, as always, we have Leon Taryan, Oscar Orengo, and Conor Kennedy. Guys, how are you guys doing? Are you guys excited for Christmas on Saturday? And are you guys excited for the weekend of NFL football, which is going to be so critical?
My time in the COVID gulag ends tomorrow, so I'm pretty pumped about that. I'm coming off the reserve list, so
Yeah, he's been in. Connor has been in COVID-19 protocols, but fortunately, that does not prevent him from joining our podcast.
Glad you're feeling better.
As the reserve long snapper of the Buffalo Bills, I'm going to be at Gillette Stadium this Saturday, or no, not Saturday, Sunday. Thanks for all the well wishes.
There you go. Good luck.
I'm feeling better.
Yeah, absolutely. But even then, you still could have been the kicker for the Carolina Panthers on Sunday inside Ralph Wilson Stadium. But we're going to kind of do things a little bit differently tonight. Instead of kind of going segment by segment, we're going to kind of mix it up a bit. We're just going to test something. So kind of follow along with us and see how this works. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our first takeaway from Leon, and we'll go from there. So what will be our first topic of tonight?
The Nfc Wild Card is an absolute mess right now. We have 3 teams sitting at 7-7. Big wins throughout the weekend. The Vikings almost shut out the Bears. Almost. The Saints upset the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home, winning 9-0. Brady's first shutout loss of his career. And this was at home. So the Saints seem to always have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers number whenever they play them in the regular season. And finally, the Eagles could just run over any team. They ran over Washington 27-17. Hurts, Sanders, Howard, it doesn't matter. Even if you put Boston Scott in there, they could run over any team. So I thought the Vikings were not going to make it. I thought the Saints were not going to make it. I thought the Eagles were not going to make it. But at this point, I'm not really sure who deserves that 7th spot.
Yeah, it's completely wide open. And, just looking at the spot now, I'll say this. I don't believe the Vikings are going to make it because they have a really tough schedule the rest of the way. They got to play the Rams and the Packers left. And I know they got another game against Chicago, but I just think they're way too inconsistent to consistently rely on them winning these critical games down the stretch because Kirk Cousins the last 2 weeks has not played very well. And I know they've won despite that, but they're not going to be able to do that against Los Angeles or Green Bay and expect to win. I really think the 49ers and Saints are in a really good position, although, the Saints, you do have to worry how far can Taysom Hill take you. But with the way their defense is playing right now, maybe they'll be able to do just enough in the remainder of their schedule to get in. The Eagles, the stat from last night that really stood out to me from them was that was their 7th straight game that they've ran for over 175 yards. The first team to do that since the 1985 Chicago Bears, who were Super Bowl champions and pretty dominant ones at that. Obviously, the Eagles aren't the 1985 Bears, but they're definitely right there in the picture. And Jalen Hurts, he took care of the football last night, which is just crucial in terms of getting into the playoffs and into the postseason. So between those 4 teams, there's 2 spots there. I'm going to say I like the Niners and I like the Saints to get those final 2 spots. What about you guys, Connor and Oscar?
I actually think the Eagles. I think out of those 3 that Leon put up, I think the Eagles, they've shown us that they can have a balanced offense. They're doing great off the run option. Jalen Hurts, explosive. And we're seeing how their run game is opening up their passing game. So they're getting Goddard involved. They're getting Jalen Reagor involved. They're getting Devonta Smith. Greg Ward out of nowhere scored a touchdown. I think that's really good. Seems like they're going on all cylinders. And, they had a good showing against the Washington football team. So I think they get it out of those 2. The Saints, they're still trying to figure themselves out. and the Vikings definitely showed us that they are vulnerable. So I think the Eagles are definitely on top right now. They're playing great.
I'm going to say either the Saints or the Washington football team. I mean, the Saints, obviously, they shut out Brady at his home stadium this past Sunday on Sunday Night Football. They're playing, I think, the Dolphins, the Falcons, and then I forget who else they're playing. But I think with their defense, they definitely have a shot. The only thing I'm really concerned about with them is that they're basically starting a fullback at quarterback. So, like, you know, they only scored 9 points in that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. So that's a definite point of concern for me. So when they're playing an offense that isn't as beat up as that Tampa Bay offense was on Sunday, you know, it's going to be really tough for them to win by only kicking field goals. So that's really concerning to me. But I think with the Washington football team, their defense has really stepped up as of late. You know, somehow without Chase Young, I don't think that's a correlation, but like I think they've just been really coached really well by Riverboat Ron. And their offense is pretty underrated too. You know, they got a solid run game. Their receiving core is pretty good. Taylor Heineke was playing well until he was placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. But I'm thinking that he comes back for these next 3 games and really balls out and helps the Washington football team potentially clinch a playoff berth. Personally, with the Eagles, I'm a bit concerned about their defense, particularly their secondary, as well as Jalen Hurts. I still can't really trust him. I mean, like he's obviously a threat on the ground game, but I still don't think that he's like as refined as he needs to be as a passer in order to be an NFL starting quarterback. And the Vikings, their defense is just flat out trash. I mean, like the Steelers were like a Hail Mary away from, and also Chase Claypool flub from beating the Vikings, like who had a 29-point lead at one point. And like Nick said earlier, obviously Kirk Cousins hasn't been playing well. I think on Monday Night Football, he threw 2 touchdowns, but he also threw an interception, and he only threw for 87 yards, which is wild in the modern NFL, to not throw for like at least 100. So yeah, I don't think that the Vikings or the Eagles will be in the playoffs. I think it's going to be a toss-up between the Saints or the Washington football team for that 7th seed.
Oscar, no love for Taysom Hill? Not this time? You're muted.
Well, I think a little bit, but I just try to be a little bit realistic with how challenging it's been for the Saints to assimilate to having that kind of offense that they have. They've had a lot of injuries. Sometimes Kamara's out. Sometimes their wide receivers are out. Their wide receivers, they haven't really been able to get good returns from them. Traquan Smith, Callaway, they're just not working out for them this season. So it seems like the Eagles have that momentum. That's really important in sports.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see if there's like any website that has like all the wild card contender schedules lined up next to each other, just for comparison. Right. But I'm not seeing anything that.
Well, I did see the Eagles, and the Eagles actually they're playing like people within their division. I think they have another meetup with Dallas, and I want to say the Giants. Which I think the Dallas game is going to be a good
Giants on Sunday.
Yeah, because every team plays their division rivals on week 18 in the last week. Yeah, so the Eagles, their last 3 games are home against the Giants, at the Washington football team, and then the Cowboys in week 18. So that's certainly a really interesting game there. And obviously, the Cowboys, you got to think about this. The Cowboys have a good shot of having that division clinched by then, and they may not be playing for anything. They might be permanently the 4th seed there. They probably won't be playing for the first round bye.
Who do you bench though on Dallas? Everybody's such a playmaker. Like, Everybody catches balls. Everybody runs hard. But Ezekiel Elliott, who do you bench? You bench Pollard and tell Ezekiel Elliott to start because he's not doing that well. You
Well, I
want
mean,
to
you
save
definitely
Pollard for the
bench Dak
playoffs?
Prescott in a game where you
Right.
definitely, if the Cowboys don't have any chance of the number 1 seed, you definitely bench Prescott, especially considering some of his injury history.
Bench Trayvon Diggs, probably Cooper.
Your defense, yeah.
Micah Parsons, I'd bench him.
I mean, you could bench Prescott for Cooper Rush. I mean, he beat the Vikings.
That's true.
Yeah, so but that's a theoretical
Cooper Rush
scenario.
pretty
And
good,
of course,
actually.
the way things are playing out, they probably won't be able to because they'll be playing because they still could be playing when they're technically only a game behind the Packers. So anything can definitely happen.
Even if they are the 1 seed, they would never win the Super Bowl. Don't,
The
it's
Cowboys?
the Cowboys. No way.
Like
Yeah.
if they got the 1 seed, like
Wouldn't even make
it's
it.
relatively possible. But like I think
I see them being like a second round exit to me. Like they just aren't that real team.
I would definitely pick them to lose to the Packers or a fully healthy Bucks team, but without Chris Godwin coming up, I don't know. I mean, granted, you can't really pick against Tom Brady in the playoffs just because he has, the trademarks Brady's luck. But at this, this year is just so unpredictable. I'm not counting anyone out who's in the playoff race. So the way we're going to move forward is we're going to go over to Oscar and he'll do his injury report for this week. And we'll kind of react to that because there are some really big ones this week.
All right. Well, my takeaway is actually good because it segues into the injury part, which basically just kind of trying to predict what the Bucs are going to look like later on in the season. And because of these injuries to Chris Godwin, the injuries to Mike Evans, Leonard Fournette, those are going to affect Tom Brady big time. A guy who has made the effort this season of getting big pieces, great pieces to help support him. I think it's pretty hard. I think Fournette hit the IR, Chris Godwin hit the IR, Mike Evans is week to week. So those are some big losses for the Bucs, and hopefully they figure out what they're going to do. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Bucs signed Le'Veon Bell to try to fill in a little bit of room, and I'll be honest, I jumped on that real quick, and I picked up Le'Veon Bell, and I regretted it almost instantly, and I'm definitely dropping him on waivers at some point tonight. But moving on, Cardinals had a couple of injuries. Rondell Moore, wide receiver, had an ankle injury. He might be missing out this week because it's such a short week. Cardinals play on Saturday, so that might affect him. And that just means more rest for Christian Kirk, A.J. Green, and Andy Isabella. Andy Isabella would be coming back as more of a backup position, getting more of a feature role. With the Packers, we have a lot of COVID injuries, or not COVID injuries, but COVID reserve guys. Marcus Valdes-Scantling with COVID. It means Alan Lazard might get some more playing time. Tyreek Hill with COVID, Travis Kelsey with COVID with the Chiefs. Carlos Hyde suffered a concussion. This might mean James Robinson gets some more play as well. With the Titans, Julio Jones kind of had a injury-riddled season with his hamstring. Again, got pulled out of the game, and he has no designation as of now in terms of reports, so he may be able to play tomorrow on Thursday. With the Vikings, we all saw Teddy Bridgewater with a concussion, got out of the game. We'll see how he gets to come back in time for this weekend.
Yeah, and just to briefly add on to these injury reports, just from the Titans' perspective, both of our off limb on the left side, Taylor Lewan and Roger Saffold are both out for tomorrow night against San Francisco. So the entire left side of the Titans' opposite line is going to be backups, which I don't think it's going to end up very well for the Titans tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's tough sledding for them. No A.J. Brown. Julio Jones, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I mean, obviously, Derrick Henry's still a couple of weeks away, and that's who we really need to come back. But but obviously with the Bucs, I mean that was just insane to watch unfold on Sunday night. Just the one after the other, all three of their big time playmakers. I mean, you still obviously had Gronk, but by the end of the game, the Saints were just blanketing him because there was no one else that they really had to worry about. And you just see Tom Brady visibly was upset on the sideline, really didn't know what really to do. Obviously, for the next couple of weeks here, the Bucs will have to operate with Gronk. Obviously, Antonio Brown is back from his COVID suspension, and obviously he'll have to take a massive role. Now, luckily for the Buccaneers, the rest of their schedule is relatively easy. I mean, they have the Panthers this week, they have the Falcons in week 18, and they have the Jets in between the Panthers and the Falcons. So they should still win these 3 games even without all their stars. And by the time the playoffs come, they should have both Fournette and Evans back. So I think that Bucs will be fine. I think they still are a Super Bowl contender. Obviously, losing Godwin is big because he was a big-time possession receiver. He could get you a ton of catches throughout the game. But they'll figure it out. Like Tom Brady, he'll get like Scotty Miller or someone like that, or like a person to show up and really make some big-time plays.
Yeah, there's definitely a point where I believe it's Scotty Miller, but he just hasn't developed this season. And maybe it's because Antonio Brown filled in that third wide receiver role. But yeah, we'll see. He's a big drop guy. That's what I've realized from Scotty Miller. He's never really been able to step up on hot moments. It's been disappointing. But yeah.
Absolutely. Connor, Leon, what are your thoughts on where the Bucs go from here?
Like personally, I'm not completely convinced that they're a team that's going to be in the Super Bowl. But then again, a lot of people thought that the Packers were better than the Bucs last year around this time, and of course, we all saw what happened. So I'm not going to doubt that a Brady team could make it to the Super Bowl. But Godwin is going to hurt significantly. He might be back for the playoffs. So that might be something to look out for. But also something that Godwin brought to the field was his blocking abilities. Like, he was a great run blocker. So Le'Veon Bell and the rest of the running backs on that Buccaneers roster, I think the one that they signed from Cincinnati this past offseason, like, they're all really going to have to overcome those kind of deficiencies. Then again, their offensive line is great, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But also Mike Evans being day-to-day is a little concerning. Their number one back, Leonard Fournette, being out is going to hurt quite a bit. But at the same time, like, they got Gronk, AB's coming back. Mike Evans could come back at some point during this season. He could be playing on Sunday. So I don't think it's going to completely derail their Super Bowl hopes, but it's going to hurt quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't think if they get any of those players back, they will even make it to the Super Bowl. Like I said, I think the Packers will make the Super Bowl and win it. But picture a perfect scenario in Week 17 where Mike White somehow gets the start against Tom Brady and wins in the Meadowlands. I think the entire social media of sports, including the NFL, will explode. It would be absolutely crazy. But that will not happen. But they need those players to heal up fast during the playoffs, because we saw what happened whenever the Patriots faced the Titans in the wild card a couple of years ago, and Brady had no weapons around him. So he's going to need all the support that he could get from Le'Veon Bell and his other teammates. So we'll see.
Yeah, speaking of Le'Veon Bell, like, how good do we think he can actually be? Because ever since he left Pittsburgh, he's been a shell of his former self. He's been a big-time off-field distraction. But at the same time, Antonio Brown was also a big off-field distraction. I know he's recently become one again, but still up until the whole fake COVID card, he had kept his mouth shut and had done what he basically was supposed to do. Do we think Le'Veon Bell is also going to kind of fall in line and just play his part, or is he still going to cause the off-field distractions?
Absolutely not. I think it's over for Le'Veon Bell personally. I mean, obviously, being with the Jets and Adam Gase didn't really help much. That offensive line was terrible, and the play calling over in the Meadowlands for the Jets wasn't really good as well. They didn't really, build on any of Le'Veon Bell's strengths, and I think they kind of wasted his talent. And he wasted his talent also by sitting out for the entire 2018 season. There's a reason why the Chiefs didn't re-sign him. There's a reason why the Baltimore Ravens cut him this season after their almost entire running back room was on the injured reserve. So I just don't really see what the upside is for Le'Veon Bell anymore. I mean, he had like one game this season where he averaged over 4 yards a carry, but besides that, he hasn't been playing all that well.
He's kind of in like the same boat as Adrian Peterson, just now like a journeyman running back. He'll get a touchdown at the goal line here and there, but they need all their players back. They need to heal up fast and get healthy.
Like, if you were in this situation, who would you rather want, Le'Veon Bell or Adrian Peterson? Like, you don't really want either one of them right now, but who would you rather have?
If I'm at the goal line, I want Peterson. Otherwise, I don't know if I want Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell is, I mean, I think just like Connor said, like he's been kind of a journeyman guy trying to show what he's got, and nobody's been able to take advantage of him. I think with the Chiefs last year, towards the end of the season, he definitely was on his best behavior. He's definitely one of those players that's like hoping to get a ring, wants to get another Super Bowl. So he's willing to do whatever to sell out like for that opportunity, especially now that he knows. I mean, I think he behaves when he knows what's at stake, and he wants to earn a job, earn a position. And this is totally the situation that he's in. Hopefully, Tom Brady can make something with it. I mean, he's definitely going to be the check down guy. Unless Gronkowski is the bigger target, he's available. But we'll see. I mean, he might not even be the starting running back. It's probably gonna be Ronald Jones anyway. He's still got to figure out he's still got to figure out what he's gonna do. So yeah, we'll see.
Because I think one of the big keys for Le'Veon Bell to be successful in any offense is how do you incorporate him into the passing game? Because back in his days in Pittsburgh, that was one of his big specialties because he was always a decent runner, a really good one at that. But where he really did his damage was out of the backfield catching the football. Like, before Alvin Kamara, he probably was the best receiver back in the entire league. So can the Bucs find a way to get him a couple of touches through the air? And obviously with how many times Brady typically throws in a game, there's going to be those opportunities there. So I'll be very curious to see how Byron Leftwich incorporates him into the Bucs passing game.
But are they going to play at home this week against the Panthers, or they're going to Carolina?
No, they're going to Carolina.
Yeah, with the way Newton's playing, even though Newton does get like a touchdown every game and a couple big plays here and there, could be a close game, but I'd see the Bucs could probably win by a field goal, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, the Panthers are a mess right now. Obviously, they had some COVID issues. They didn't have any kickers last week. Sam Darnold is healthy again, but Matt Rule isn't going to put him back on the field. He's only going to be out there in limited roles. They just don't trust any of their stars right now. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, he's basically done for the season. I think the Bucs will win by at least 2 touchdowns, even with all their injuries, just because I think their defense will shut them down pretty well. I think it'll be something like 24-10. I really think Tampa takes care of Carolina. So, yeah. So anyway, kind of.
Got muted, my friend.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on, let's get into some fantasy football because it's fantasy playoffs. This past week was the first round for a lot of people. Fortunately, I got to take a break because I'm the number 1 seed, so I'll be in the line of fire this week. Although I'm kind of nervous about that because it seems like the number 1 seed always loses in the fantasy playoffs. Like there's like a curse to being the 1 seed. So, and obviously I had Chris Godwin on my team, so it's certainly something that I'm nervous about trying to replace. Hopefully Odell will serve as a good replacement. But to tell us some of the biggest performances of this week and some of the most surprising performances is Oscar.
Well, top 3, we have here Tyler Huntley. As you guys know, he's filling in for the great Lamar Jackson, trying to do his great best impression of him. He definitely did a good job. He went 28 out of 40 passes for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also got 74 rush yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Awesome performance from him. Definitely keep an eye out for him if he's on your waiver wire. Quick pickup, especially in dynasty leagues. Duke Johnson Jr., we all remember him from his Cleveland Brown days. Didn't have a great career out there, but he blew up this weekend. 107 yards and 20 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns for the Miami Dolphins. He definitely did a great job for them, helped them out get a win. It's kept their streak alive. With the Bills, Gabriel Davis filling in for Emmanuel Sanders, did a great job. 7 catches for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns in the air. So those are three guys that blew up. Did you guys notice about anybody else that you guys would like to mention?
Yeah, Gabe Davis did really well. I think honestly in this league he could be like a good wide receiver too. I think he caught like 2 touchdowns this past Sunday against the Panthers. I don't know when Emmanuel Sanders will be back. He was limited in practice today. I think he's got like a foot injury. But I think either way, Gabe Davis has been one of Josh Allen's favorite targets over these past couple seasons, and I think he'd be a great pickup if he's on your waiver wire. Also, Devin Singletary did relatively well too. He hasn't been all that consistent throughout the season, but he did score a rushing touchdown this past Sunday. He ran for 86 yards, still under 4 yards to carry, but I think it was good progress for Singletary. I think he'd be a good, running back on your bench.
I think one player that really stood out to me this weekend, both from a fantasy and just his impact in the game, Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's really developed into his own. He's starting to become a star for the Detroit Lions. Probably he may end up being their best receiver since Calvin Johnson. By the time he matures into his peak. But obviously this past week against the formerly best record Arizona Cardinals, he had 8 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. He's become Jared Goff's #1 target. He's pretty solid, and he's on my waiver wire. I'm trying to get him right now. He might end up being a replacement for Chris Godwin for me because he's clearly becoming the guy in Detroit. Just what do we think the long-term potential of Amon-Ra St. Brown is?
Actually, you brought a great topic up, the Lions, the fact that they got another win under their belt, that's awesome. And it was against one of the best teams, against the Arizona Cardinals. It definitely showed a lot of potential for that team. It's a young team, in terms of the wide receivers and the running back core. Hopefully Jared Goff, continues whatever he's figured out so far. And the defense too.
Craig Reynolds also had a big game, 100+ yards in his first career start. You brought up how they have a good running back receiver core. TJ Hawkinson, he's a good tight end. You could say he's a top 10 tight end in the league, someone that's going to stay in Detroit for a long time if they choose to keep him there. But if I were the Lions, I'd probably go after a Tyler Huntley for next season, someone that can compete with Goff, but definitely go after one of those DNs or Stingley Jr. He's the cornerback prospect, I think.
Yeah, from LSU, a fantastic player.
And then look to go quarterback from there. But definitely see what you could do with free agent QBs in the offseason or making a trade for a backup. Not Mike Glennon, please don't do that. But yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of Tyler Huntley, let's kind of use that to transition into our third key takeaway from today and throw over to Connor, because I know you want to talk about that Packers-Ravens game, and I kind of want to have a debate with Oscar at some point during this topic as well.
Oh, man. I'll try to get ready.
Yeah, obviously the Packers beat the Ravens 31-30. And honestly, at this point, I think Leon said something like this earlier too. Them going to the Super Bowl and winning it. I think the Packers, as the NFL, in terms of the AFC and NFC stand right now, the Packers are the best team in the league. I think the only real flaw they have is their special teams. I think the Bears scored a kickoff return touchdown. Playing them, I think, on Sunday Night Football. But other than that, their defense has been playing really well. Their cornerbacks, particularly Eric Stokes, that rookie that they drafted out of Georgia. I think this past NFL draft, he was a steal at 29. And of course, also that other corner that they got from the Cardinals practice squad. Does anyone remember his name?
Rasul Douglas?
Yes, Rasul Douglas. He's been an absolute stud as well. I don't know how he was spending time on a practice squad and not on an active roster before the Packers found him. This is the first time in at least a while, if not Aaron Rodgers' whole career, that he's had a really good defense, at least in terms of their secondary. And obviously, shifting over to the offense, they got one of the best receivers in the game, Devontae Adams. They had 2 or 3 guys covering him in that pass game playing the Ravens. So that's an obvious sign of respect from the Ravens towards him. I don't think I've heard of anyone doing that ever since Randy Moss was in the game. And Randall Cobb, like, he has some great chemistry with Aaron Rodgers dating back to 2011 when they went 15-1. You know, he still's got some juice left in the tank per se, and he's been doing really well as a Packer. And their run game is awesome too. AJ Dillon was the right pick, I think, in round 2 in 2020. And Aaron Jones has been great as well. Their O-line's been pretty good, even though they're banged up. Like, those guys have really been showing up. And obviously, when you got one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the game, Aaron Rodgers, like, you're going to win a lot of games. But I think they got the defense together now. So I think they could easily go on a run and finally get over that hump of losing in the NFC Championship, going to a Super Bowl, possibly winning it. Because honestly, I don't know who in the AFC could really, like, match up well with them.
Yeah, I mean, before we get into that debate between Nick and Oscar, David Bakhtiari's out, Elton Jenkins is out, Robert Tonyan is out, Jair Alexander, I've yet to see him come onto the field. Zadarius Smith, I think, has also been out, and they look like they keep getting better. I mean, Rodgers, 268 yards, 3 touchdowns. I do not remember the last time he's turned over the football at all, whether if it's a forced fumble or an interception. He looks unstoppable on the field, and I don't understand how you get better with players being out. It's crazy. Just this season has been wild.
I'll say one unsung hero on this team to me is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Like, he's made some really clutch catches, and probably one of the most impressive throws of the week was Aaron Rodgers right across the middle. I believe it was in the third quarter. Just put it right in a tight window that no one else could get it to, but MVS, as Packer fans like to call him. He's Aaron Rodgers, and he does what he does. And I think he's only turned over the ball twice in 2 different games. Obviously, that first game against New Orleans, which we've come to find out they having a great defense. I mean, we saw what they did to the Bucs the other night. I think, obviously,
4 times.
4 times in that game. Then they had the
No. Rodgers has 4 turnovers on the season. I think he's at 30 touchdowns and 4 interceptions.
Yeah, because I think 2 of them were against the Saints, and I think he had 1 or 2 against the Cardinals as well. But outside of that, he's been virtually perfect. And honestly, a lot of talk about Brady being the MVP. I really think that Rodgers should be in consideration for a back-to-back now. I think he isn't going to get it because of all the off-the-field stuff. I mean, let's just be honest. The MVP is not just about on the field; it's about what happens off the field. But just in terms of off the field, on the field, I mean, he clearly is, I think, the most valuable player in the league to his team. The Packers are not the same team. We saw that at Kansas City, when he wasn't playing. And Jordan Love came in and just could not do anything that Aaron Rodgers can do on a regular basis. But I think one thing that we're losing here is Tyler Huntley. I think Tyler Huntley in this game was absolutely fantastic. Showed that he is by far a very capable backup. And honestly, like Leon said, I think some of these teams should look at him to start, because I've been saying all year that I'm not impressed with the upcoming college draft class outside of maybe a Kenny Pickett or a Matt Corral. But even then, I have questions about their top-end potential in the NFL. So, looking for a guy like Tyler Huntley, he may be one of the few options out there that cost you an arm or leg, like a Russell Wilson, or even potentially Aaron Rodgers if he's on the market. So, obviously, kind of pivoting over to what I want to discuss with Oscar here. So we kind of had a discussion in our group chat, like after the game. We disagree on whether or not the Ravens should have gone for 2 at the end. So I'm team they should have, because you're in that moment. So you scored the touchdown. It's 31-30. If you send Justin Tucker out, kick the extra points, 31-31, Green Bay is going to push it. And they're going to go down the field, and there's a very good chance Aaron Rodgers is going to get Mason Crosby into a position to try to beat you. If you go for 2, at the very minimum, at least you give yourself a shot, if you make the 2, to completely win it. And I think if you're going up against virtually any other quarterback, you kick the extra point. But I think because it's Aaron Rodgers on the other sideline, you try to go for the win there. And if you get it, then you just got to hope you somehow stop him, which is a very hard task. But you got to also at least try to make it to where it's Mason Crosby having to make the game-winning kick, because it's a little bit different for Crosby if he has to go out there knowing that he has to make it to win versus, if it's 31-31, it's still a tie and it goes to overtime if he misses. So I think that was the calculus Harbaugh was trying to go with there. And especially considering that he has a backup quarterback. I know he'd been playing really, really well, but that was probably his best shot because you had to think, okay, if we go to OT and I get the ball back, because there's a chance if you go to OT that the Packers get the ball first and we never see that offense on the field again. But, even if the Ravens get the ball back, how much do you trust your offense to go back down the field again in overtime? So I think that was the calculus. You see this a lot with underdogs, that they think that when you're going up against a better team, you have to go for the win when the opportunity presents itself. So I think Oscar actually locked out, so we're going to try to get him back on.
He's back on. He's ready to debate.
All right, Oscar, did you hear most of that?
I did. And
all right.
I agree with you on some stuff, I think. I didn't hear all of it. I heard most of it, I think, because it was weird. But just to go back a little bit on what Conor said, I think I agree the Packers they're one of the best teams. I don't think they are the number one team, just because kind of like what you brought up, special teams is not all there. Defense-wise, I think Brent Hundley showed us that their defense isn't as great. You got this new guy, shouldn't be this good, and he actually blew up, and he got almost to the point where he either tied or he could have. I think the Ravens had a chance to win, because you still gotta win the coin flip. First touchdown score.
Oscar, I think we lost you again. Yeah, I think we're losing you again, unfortunately.
Your audio. The new headphones.
Yeah, something's going on. Oh, we'll get back to him in a second. But Leon Connors, what's your thoughts on that choice at the end to go for 2 in the win?
Personally, I agree. Oh, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, personally, I'm on Nick's side. I agree with Harbaugh's decision to go for 2. I mean, that Baltimore offense with rolling with Tyler Huntley, he's probably one of the best backups in the league. He really fits well with the offensive system that the Ravens are trying to cultivate. And I really respect Harbaugh's decision to trust his guys to help win that game. Him giving his team that confidence, him feeling that they could pull through and get those 2 points on the board. Like I don't see any reason why not to at that point in the game, especially when you are playing the Packers and Aaron Rodgers is on the other side of the field. We've seen this story before. I mean, I think week 3, it was a somewhat similar situation. I think that the Niners just scored a touchdown. They had the lead, but they left less than a minute on the board. But Aaron Rodgers marched down the field and Mason Crosby kicked the game-winning field goal. So I think that honestly might have been even more risky to let one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time march his offense down the field so Mason Crosby could kick the game winner versus just scoring a 2-point conversion and ending it right then and there pretty much.
I feel like there's reasons for both. I would say for Nick's argument is because it's Aaron Rodgers and he has time left. He did it against the 49ers in the past. I think he had also a couple timeouts there. So I understand why it was out of respect. But the reason they should have also went for the field goal is because Baltimore has a decent defense. They're playing at home. They're playing in the cold weather. Now, I understand the Packers usually play in cold weather, but you have to at least believe in your defense with some time left. And the coin flip also. And I don't think that Lamar Jackson could have played better than Tyler Huntley if he was the starter at all. But you're having a downfall second half of the season. You're about to miss out of the playoffs. Why would you go for 2? So very torn between it. I don't see the Ravens winning the AFC North or even making the playoffs at all.
I have a question. Why do we think that if they make that 2-point conversion, Aaron Rodgers still doesn't make it down the field and score that 3-point field goal? Like, is that still a foregone conclusion?
But here's basically what I'm saying. There would be a different in pressure. So basically, if it's 31-31 and the Packers go for that field goal, at the very least, Crosby, if he misses it, it goes to OT, right? So there isn't as much pressure on him to make that field goal. But if he's down by a point, then in my opinion, that would ratchet up the pressure. You're on the road. You're going to be dealing with the road crowd. I think there's a higher chance of him missing it down one, just from a human psychological level.
But
All right,
here's the
I
thing
guess you're
also.
right. I guess that's one point.
But here's the thing: Mason Crosby hasn't been having that good of a season either. So whether they tie it or the Ravens take a 1-point lead, he might miss it either. He might miss it also because Crosby started having that downfall against Cincinnati, which I think was after week 3. So we don't really know what would happen with the cold, not at home, and the elements there. So special teams Oscar brought up is an issue. So we don't know what would have happened, but what a downfall they've had ever since that loss to Miami several weeks back. It's just been downhill from there for Baltimore.
Right. And I saw a clip online about like how Harbaugh was asking his players like what they should do, and it's real touching that he like listened to them. But it's only cool when it works. You know, like you only get the praise of like, hey, yeah, I let the team make this decision with me when it works. When it doesn't work, it's your fault. Like hey, we lost that game because you made this call. It's his fault. He's got to figure that out, and he's got to put them in the best place to win. And maybe they're not in contention for a playoff, or maybe they're not pushing for that because they don't have their star athletes on there. But I don't know. I was a spectator. I just thought it bothered me because it was like, hey, look, this is how you're supposed to do it. This makes sense. Give us free football. I thought the tie would have been more exciting. We get an extra 10 minutes or so. We get to watch somebody like live or die in the next couple minutes. That's what I thought.
Yeah, but I think also too. Here's another argument. The Ravens are already a very injured team. Because right now you don't have Lamar Jackson, have a lot of your other big players. So another 10 minutes of football opens up the possibility for more injuries, and especially considering that we are in a longer season. I think that coaches do have to kind of weigh that in consideration sometimes. If you have an opportunity to avoid an overtime period, it might be smart for you to do so if you feel like you have a shot of winning the game in regulation. So that's just me playing devil's advocate, but I do think that's maybe something else that Harbaugh was thinking about as well.
A lot of people that I saw coming back, because before my flight where I left from Miami, I was watching that 2-point conversion play, and a lot of people coming back to New York were not happy to see that. They said they're going to miss it again. That's what's going to happen. They thought they should have kicked the field goal, so that's what I saw, and that's kind of what I thought in the moment. But at the same time, Aaron Rodgers on the other sideline. But yeah, I don't see them making the playoffs. It's sad because they were the 1 seed for a large portion of the first half of the entire season, and now they're having this downfall, and that allows other teams like the Miami Dolphins or the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Cincinnati Bengals to sneak in and steal those last minute spots in the wild card.
Yeah, just the AFC North as a whole is insane. So the Bengals right now are technically the division leader, 8-6. The Ravens are also 8-6. The Steelers are 7-6-1, and the Browns are 7-7. Everyone's within a game of each other. I don't know if I've ever seen this with a division. Maybe the NFC East a couple years ago, if I remember correctly, was kind of like this when everyone was below 500. But like literally any one of these teams could win it. Now, I think the Browns, to me, are a dead team walking at this point. They just had too much drama off the field. Losing that game to the Raiders in the way they did, I think might have been a death blow for their season. After the Steelers, they beat my Titans. That certainly has to give their team a lot of confidence, especially their defense. And the Bengals, I mean, they did not play that well in Denver the other day, but to find a way to win, especially with a young team, the sign of a team like that maturing is find a way to win an ugly game on the road, and to find a way to beat the Broncos on the road was massive for Cincinnati. So I have no idea who's going to come out of the AFC North. Who do you guys think is going to come out? Because this upcoming week we've got the Ravens and the Bengals, and that could ultimately go a long way in determining who wins this division?
I think it would be the Bengals. Their pass rush is really good too. They got one of the best defensive ends in the league, in my personal opinion, and one of the best safeties in Jesse Bates. So their defense has improved quite a bit from last year. Obviously, Carl Lawson exiting in free agency over to the Jets hurt them a bit, but I think overall they're playing better as a unit, and their offense is obviously way better. Their O-line isn't quite there yet, but it's improved quite a bit. Joe Burrow has made quite a leap from year 1 to year 2, and his wide receiver core is crazy. Like, he's got Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins also, and his tight end Uzomah is pretty good too. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And he's got one of the best running backs in the league as well, and Joe Mixon. So all around, I think they're the most solid team in the AFC North. Now, if I think they'll, win a playoff game or two, I really couldn't say, but I think they'll win this division handily.
I don't know why, but I keep believing in Pittsburgh, but it's going to be Cincinnati probably. Pittsburgh would have to defeat the Chiefs this week. I don't think that's going to happen, especially whenever you are going to Kansas City. I'm pretty sure that's happening. I think they could beat the Browns at home, and even with Lamar Jackson, I think the Steelers could sweep them. But if we are being realistic here, it is the Bengals. But whichever team it is, they're not making it far in the playoffs at all.
Yeah, because let's think about what would be their likely opponent, because the AFC North champion's probably going to be the 4 seed. So if you look at the AFC race overall,
maybe the Colts, but whoever the Colts play, they're going to beat in that division.
Oh yeah, I think the Colts would absolutely be a favorite. They're over any AFC North. I mean, honestly, at this point, the Colts still are alive in the AFC South race. Obviously, if the Titans win tomorrow night and the Colts lose Friday or Saturday night, then the Titans will win the division. So there's still a lot that has to happen for the Colts to get back into it. But the way things are going right now, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility that the Colts could come back and take the AFC South, which would be pretty crazy considering that they started the season 0-3. I mean, they're honestly, they might be playing some of the best football in the entire league right now. Obviously, their defense is spectacular. Obviously, they got a great running game with Jonathan Taylor, and since Derrick Henry is out, they have the best running game right now in the NFL. So the Colts are just a scary team, and they're a scary team for anyone that plays them in the AFC playoffs. So, I mean, do we think the Colts have a shot at making a run to the Super Bowl? Because the Chiefs right now are probably the favorite in the AFC South, or in the AFC as a whole. Obviously, the Patriots just got knocked off that 1 seed line by the Colts. The Titans are just a mess right now with all the injuries. Although maybe by playoff time they'll be all the way back. They'll be back with Derrick Henry. I mean, I don't know. Like, the AFC is definitely up in the air, but it feels like the Colts are playing the best football when you want to be playing your best football.
I mean, speaking for the Chiefs, I personally wouldn't want to see them in the Super Bowl because I don't think they would really do much of anything there. I'd like to see the Colts make a run through the playoffs because they have this nice blend of young and old players. They have players that I grew up and watched in high school, like Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, T.Y. Hilton, although he hasn't been that helpful this season, Zach Pascal. But they bring in new players like Jonathan Taylor, Carson Wentz, Michael Pittman, second-year player who's going to be their next star receiver. And you probably have the best offensive lineman in the league in Quentin Nelson. They have a good O-line. They have Darius Leonard on defense, DeForest Buckner, who is now a Pro Bowler yet again. Kenny Moore, the safety, who's now a Pro Bowler this year. This is a good team. I'd like to see them make a run or face the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Colts are honestly the most solid team in the league all around. And I felt this way last year also. I mean, obviously they have one of the best running backs in the league in Jonathan Taylor. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Their wide receiving core is also pretty underrated. Michael Pittman is doing pretty well in his second year. And T.Y. Hilton, well, he's lost some juice. He can contribute at least a little bit, as we saw on Sunday. Carson Wentz, like they don't really need to ask him to do too much, and he'll do well in a kind of game manager role. Their defense is really good also. DeForest Buckner and Darius Leonard are obviously playmakers. So I would not doubt it in the slightest if they could make a deep playoff run. I think we could see them in the AFC Championship game.
Absolutely. So a lot to watch there in the AFC, and we're going to have one more AFC game to analyze here in a few minutes. But first, let's kind of jump ahead to Week 16 here. Obviously, it's Christmas week. A lot of you probably have burned a lot of money spending on buying Christmas gifts. You may not have that much left, but you want to make some of that money back, right? Well, Connor, he'll help you out with that. Connor, let's make some people some money here on this Christmas weekend.
All right, I got 4 Week 15 matchups, or actually no, I got 4 Week 16 matchups. My bad. These are all upsets. I had a little fun with this one. And I'm going to start off with the Miami Dolphins versus the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are favored by 3 points, and the over-under is 38.5. Now, the Saints just shut out the Bucs in a much-needed statement win to stay alive in the playoff hunt. Their defense played pretty well, of course, but their offense only scored 9 points because Taysom Hill's not an NFL quarterback, being honest here. Sorry, Oscar. Now, Miami, on the other hand, they've won their last 6 games and are all around playing like a completely different team than they were a couple months ago. Now, I expect the Dolphins to at least score a touchdown in this game. And I also expect Taysom Hill to throw a couple interceptions as well. That cornerback core in Miami is really good too. Xavier Howard is an absolute stud. And I think the Dolphins could upset the Saints in this game. This next game, probably the most risky bet, not going to lie. It's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are favored by 7.5 points, and the over-under is 44. Now, my motivation in picking the Steelers is that the Chiefs might be without Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey on Sunday. They are on the COVID-19 reserve list. Now, they're both vaccinated, so it's very possible that they can return on Sunday. But I think without them, that Chiefs team looks a lot different, and I think that would benefit the Steelers defense quite a bit. Now, this Chiefs defense, as it's been playing this past month or so, their improved run game and Patrick Mahomes could keep them in this game. But I would not be surprised either if the Steelers or Mike Tomlin march into Arrowhead and beat this beat-up Chiefs team. Steelers win. Next game we're going to talk about, it's going to be the Indianapolis Colts versus the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are favored by a point. The over-under is 49. Now, the Cardinals were upset by the Lions in Detroit. While this is in any given Sunday league, and I still think they're one of the best teams in the NFC, that's still somewhat concerning. Now, the Colts are looking like one of the best teams in the AFC, could potentially win their division, and are coming off a statement win against the Patriots. Right now, I trust the Colts more since they're the most well-rounded team of the league, like I said earlier, and I think the Colts win this game. Last game we're going to talk about, it's going to be the Detroit Lions versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are favored by 5.5 points, and the over-under is 42.5. I was looking at this matchup. I was trying to tell myself, do not bet on a Lions game. I lost money on them this past weekend. I bet on the Vikings beating them earlier in the season. They did not do that. Well, I mean, they did in the first matchup, but not in the matchup that I'm talking about. And I also bet that they beat the Eagles earlier on in the season. They didn't do that. But, when I keep looking at how these two teams match up, I sincerely think that the Lions have a great shot at beating this Falcons team. The Falcons are the Falcons. Meanwhile, the Lions just bit the kneecaps off the Cards and are looking to bite some kneecaps off of another Bird team this Sunday. Now, Dan Campbell's been calling the plays offensively, at least this past week against the Cards. And because of that, Goff looks a lot better. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is looking great as well. And their solid run game has really helped them offensively also. And I expect them to grind out another great performance against this trash Falcons defense. And I expect Matt Ryan to throw at least one interception to Amani Oruwariye. I hope I pronounced that right. Their stud cornerback. I think he's caught 6 picks so far this season. But also Amani is I think he was limited or out of practice today with an injury. Hopefully he comes back on Sunday. And he's going to eat if he plays. Trust me on that. And I think the Lions will win this game. And those are my matchups for this Week 16 lineup.
Yeah, so I'd like to match outside of that sometimes. And one match that really catches my eye here, Jaguars and the Jets. I mean, my God, how many people are going to be watching this? Like 50 maybe. But it's a pick 'em. I mean, I don't know if really any bettors are going to even touch this game because just like what's the mentality of these teams going into this game? What's the motivation for these teams going into this game? I mean, how would you? Because I would advise people to probably stay away from that game. Would you also advise people to stay away from that game?
I mean, it's like a pick-up. You know, it doesn't really seem like a good opportunity to make some money. I mean, like at least with that Texans and Jaguars game, like you could at least point to Davis Mills is probably one of the better rookie quarterbacks, at least so far. I think Mac Jones is number 1 and Davis Mills is second. But Zach Wilson is terrible. Like honestly, I mean, like he's shown some flashes, but at the same time though, like I think one could argue that Trevor Lawrence is the worst rookie quarterback so far. I mean, he's thrown I think like 9 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. Jaguars are probably going to be picking number 1 in the draft. I think with the Jets, at least there's like a little bit of upside. You know, Michael Carter has been a pretty good running back for them. You know, just trying to find some positives with that Jets team. You know, it is pretty hard.
And
but
I
do think, a lot. Yeah, that not good.
I mean,
but I personally, if I were to pick, I would pick the Jets over the Jaguars. But yeah, I probably would stay away from this game. It doesn't really seem like you can make that much money off it.
I feel like if I were a sports gambler, I'd also take the Jets, and I feel like the Jets could probably win by multiple touchdowns. Zach Wilson probably has something to prove coming back from that injury, and I think the life has been sucked out of Trevor Lawrence and this offense. Who knows how they're going to use James Robinson. If I were a betting man, I'd take the Jets.
I think it's kind of like a Las Vegas Raiders thing. I mean, obviously the Raiders are a better team, and earlier on in the season, they were looking like true playoff wildcard contenders. But, you know, of course, with Gruden leaving and then all the drama with Henry Ruggs and some of their other players, you know, the culture kind of shattered within the Raiders, somewhat at least. And they went on a skid. Not that the Jaguars had too much positive momentum. I mean, they had those wins playing the Dolphins and the Bills. But, you know, it wasn't all that much. You know, the culture that Urban Meyer has really created in there, you know, it's still permeating. It's that same roster and a lot of the same personnel. So I just don't know if they could really come together as a team and beat the Jets. I mean, the Jets, it's more likely than some of their other matchups, of course, but I think the Jets will beat them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you all. I would go with the Jets as well in that game, but you don't really see a pick'em lines that often, so it's really interesting to see that on the sports books. So I'd be very curious to see if that line moves at all by Sunday. All right, so we're going to transition into our last key take of the day, and I kind of want to talk about a game that almost happened a week ago. The Chargers and the Chiefs. It's been 6 days since that game happened. It was one of the longest weeks of NFL football you'll ever see. Well, I guess technically Thanksgiving week last year was longer because the Ravens and the Steelers that week went from happening on Thanksgiving night to the following Wednesday. Just an unreal week trying to cover NFL. But I kind of want to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers and how they keep on proving my narrative correct. But they are just perennial chokers. They can't ever win the big game. In this game, they had 3 separate opportunities inside the 5-yard line where they didn't come away with a single point. They went for it on 4th down twice. Couldn't get it in either time. The play calling was just really, really weird. They weren't running the ball as much as I think they could have. And some of the passing calls were just not very good. And then they fumbled on the third time inside the 5-yard line. So they should have been up like 2 to 3 scores in this game. They had the game like in control for most of it. But then Patrick Mahomes wakes up, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelsey go off in fourth quarter and overtime. And the Chiefs come out with a 34-28 win in overtime, and they're more likely going to win the AFC West because the Chargers just couldn't score when they had scoring opportunities. And it was the most Charger thing I've ever seen. The entire game from start to finish was just a choke job in slow motion. Obviously, looking at this Chargers team, they have the pieces to be very talented. They have the pieces to contend, I think, for a deep playoff run. I can't trust these guys, though. How much we trust them to make the playoffs right now?
I do, but I think the AFC Falcons tried to play some money ball and it didn't work out. This team should be in the playoffs easily, without a doubt. I think they will be, but how do you blow that game, kick the field goals, take the points, and leave the stadium? That's it.
Yeah, I agree with Leon. I think the Chargers are a playoff team. I mean, how can you go wrong with Justin Herbert? I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, for sure. I think some of those fourth down decisions, I think it was more play calling and execution rather than the calls themselves. But also, that defense, like, they did not hold up whatsoever. Like, I think I saw some tweet that was like Travis Kelsey was running around that Chargers defense like a Make-A-Wish kid. And like seriously, like he just ran around like Rob Gronkowski in 2010 on them, man. Like they can't hold a lead. Like, and we've seen this before over the course of the season, as Nick's talked about, the AFC Falcons. I mean, they almost choked that Steelers game away on Sunday Night Football. And there's just been numerous cases of them, like, down the stretch. Like, you can't really trust them in those, big moments of games. They can't really cover these guys, and they can't tackle well for some reason. It's just really frustrating to watch that Chargers defense. Like, they kind of just stand around while the opposing offense does its thing.
I think Oscar.
I think it speaks a lot to like the Chargers defense not being able to stop the team. But I was also confused about why Austin Eckler wasn't used as much as he could have been used. I don't know. Was he hurt? Did he get pulled out or something? Is that what happened? I think he could have been more active.
He wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. Running the ball well, even without Eckler, like Justin Jackson ran the ball very well.
Justin Jackson did really good. Yeah.
So I'm just like you're running, and then you abandon the run completely when you get inside the red zone. It just makes no sense. Mm-hmm. You have Justin Herbert, I understand that, but sometimes you got to take what the defense gives you, and they just were giving them the run. So I don't understand how the Chargers play calling just differs so much when it gets to the goal line.
Gotcha.
Oscar, you want to finish your thought?
Well, it's just that, like, if their offense wasn't in sync in that sense, then it makes sense why they couldn't recover. But it's definitely an issue with the defense not being able to play roles. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is an awesome athlete. It seems like the Chiefs are trying, like, getting in sync in terms of their offense, so it's good to see. But it definitely, I think it was more the Chargers game to lose than the Chiefs game to win, and they couldn't hold on. They couldn't hold on to the game, took it to overtime, just couldn't finish.
Yeah, so the Chargers,
they're going to be in the playoffs, though.
Their schedule is at Houston. Yeah, so they're at Houston. They host the Broncos, and they're at the Raiders. So, I know they lost to the Broncos in Denver, but you host them next week. You should beat the Texans, although the Texans are playing somewhat better. I mean, Davis Mills has improved, and the Raiders, they're a wild card. I would think they go 3-0 here and clinch a playoff spot, but again, I trust the Chargers. Like, I think they lose one of these games somewhere and probably finish 10-7. That's probably still going to be good enough, but they're in they're in a tight situation here for the rest of the season that they didn't have to be in because of their struggling defense and they're just inability to finish off games and finish off drives. So to kind of start wrapping up this episode, it is time for the Player of the Week segment. Who did we think performed the best throughout the week? I'll start out with you, Leon. Who is your Player of the Week?
So I was going to do Aaron Rodgers, but I'll switch it up. Cooper Kupp, 9 catches, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. On the way to breaking records, trying to chase Calvin Johnson's season, his record-breaking season he had. The Stafford Kupp connection will definitely be useful in the playoffs as they have now hit 10 wins on the season. Looking forward to see how they could shake things up and make it interesting in the NFC moving forward.
Oscar, who's your week?
Tyler Huntley. He made Packers fans nervous a little bit, made them sweat. He had a great outing, did it on the air, did it on the ground. It's really awesome to see somebody just step up, show up, and get the job done. Unfortunately, didn't get the win, but it was really good to see, and hopefully we get to see some more of it.
Connor, who's your Player of the Week?
Now, I was going to talk about Make-A-Wish kid, Travis Kelsey, but instead I'm going to be talking about Aaron Rodgers. He played lights out as he's been these past 4 weeks, 23 for 31 on his passing attempts. He's completed over 74% of his passes. He threw for 3 touchdowns, and he had a 132.2 passer rating as well. These past 4 weeks, he's thrown for 13 touchdowns and no picks. Him and Patrick Mahomes, actually, you know what? Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league these past couple seasons. I think he does deserve MVP in terms of the way that he's been playing for his team. And in terms of that Kansas City game when he was out for having COVID-19, we kind of saw what Jordan Love did on the field and how he does not. He's nowhere near an NFL starting quarterback, and also he can't lead this team like Aaron Rodgers can, at least at this point. So we really see how important Aaron Rodgers is to his team. So yeah, Aaron Rodgers MVP. I don't care what they vote for.
Yeah. I was going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown, just how impressive it was. He was trying to bloom on a team that had been doing so poorly. He had 8 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. However, though, since no one else will pick him, I'm going to pick Travis Kelsey, 10 receptions, 191, and 2 touchdowns. Absolutely dominant. The way the game-winning touchdown was one of the most impressive things I've seen a tight end do in a very long time. And yeah, just very critical because, obviously, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, he's only as good as Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill end up being. And both of those guys are definitely helping Patrick Mahomes in the stat line. So definitely Travis Kelsey making a lot of wishes come true for Chiefs Nation as the Chiefs are very close to winning the AFC West and to perhaps getting the 1 seed in AFC. Just insane considering that the Chiefs at one point were 500. I had 1 point said on this very show. I didn't think the Chiefs were going to make the playoffs. However, the rest of the AFC collapsed, and now they're about to have the number 1 seed. So, we all made picks for tomorrow night's 49ers and Titans Thursday night game. And just a little bit of a note, that game's not going to be on Fox. It will only be on NFL Network. So, don't tune to your local Fox station tomorrow. Expect them to see that game. Leon, I know we all sit in our picks. What do we pick?
Nick and Oscar both have 24-14 49ers over the Titans. I'll go 30-17. I'll say there's a missed field goal somewhere, or missed extra point, a couple field goals. Connor, I didn't get your pick. What are you going to go with?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm going to go with the 49ers. I'm going to say 27-17.
Yeah, I was thinking that one too. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement that The Titans are on a latter season downfall, and the 49ers are a dark horse in the playoffs. Don't count them out. I mean, Jimmy G took them to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, so we'll see what damage they could do once it comes playoff time.
Absolutely. And Jimmy
Defense for
Garoppolo,
49ers for sure.
yeah, I mean, I still don't understand why they drafted Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's a really, really good one. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He should be their guy going forward, but we'll see how they balance him and Trey Lance. So before we close up, does any last points or questions they want to bring up?
Ooh, I got one. This has been like a perennial theme for us this season, but like with the Packers doing so good, is there any chance Aaron Rodgers stays at the end of the season, or does he win a Super Bowl and leave? What do you guys think?
There's definitely a
Or
chance he
maybe we're gonna leave
stays.
this topic done for this week.
But I do think that just the way this is all played out, with everything that's happened with Aaron Rodgers, everything that happened before the season, during the season, just listening to him talk, it feels like a guy. Because if you see his demeanor on the sideline during a football game, he seems to be exceptionally engaged. He is
Right.
living and dying by the Packers winning or losing, and it feels like someone who knows they have a finite amount of games left. If that makes any sense. So I just get a feeling I've said this entire year, it feels like a last dance for Aaron Rodgers, and I'm going to stick to that. It's not impossible we see him in green and gold next year, but I really wouldn't. If I had to bet money, I would bet that he isn't.
I mean, I could definitely see him leaving Green Bay after this season. I think him winning a Super Bowl and then leaving would be like a good like storyline, swan song kind of thing. But also in terms of what Nick was saying in terms of Last Dance, I remember, I think during training camp, him and Devontae Adams on their Instagram stories both posted pictures of Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. So I think maybe both of them could leave Green Bay after the season. But I think also a lot of the issues between Aaron Rodgers and the Packers front office have been, for the most part, resolved. I mean, they traded for Randall Cobb. They've done things to help the Packers be a more complete, well-rounded team. I think like if he wins a Super Bowl, he could end up staying. The old saying, like winning heals all wounds. So I think the Packers have really shown Aaron Rodgers that they are 100% committed to him. Despite some of the moves that they've made previously, and some of the drama that happened within the offseason, I think that Aaron Rodgers could potentially retire a Packer.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay. I think if he leaves, the only place I could think of is Denver, but yeah, I think he's going to stay.
Maybe Aaron Rodgers is a New York Giant.
I wish. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
No way it's going to happen. I wish. Praying for that.
Yeah, but I do think that honestly, outside of the Packers, like the Steelers, maybe a fit. I don't know. It's hard to think about him being outside anywhere of Green Bay, but then again, we said the same thing about Brady, and he's made it work down in Tampa Bay. Perhaps before I close it, since it's Christmas, I will ask kind of like a Christmas-ish question. So here we go. If you could want one Christmas gift, but it's NFL related, like for your teams, what would you want? Obviously, outside of just a Super Bowl, because everyone wants a Super Bowl. But what would you want? I mean, mine obviously is I want Derrick Henry back today, but I'm gonna have to wait for a couple of weeks before that happens. Leon, what would you want for the Giants?
Russell Wilson to be a Giant next season.
Connor, what would you want for the Bills? Like, if you could choose anything for Christmas morning, what would you want for the Bills?
I'm gonna say winning the AFC East. They got to beat the Patriots in Gillette Stadium this coming Sunday in order to do that. So just win out, and then you'll win the division and have a home playoff game, at least one home playoff game. So that, yeah, please win the division, man.
Oscar, what NFL Christmas thing would you want?
It'll probably be NFL fantasy related. So since I picked up Le'Veon Bell, that he actually is useful next week, that would be nice. I don't really have like an NFL team that I'm rooting for, except for the Rams. I'm doing pretty good. We'll see how far they go, but yeah, let's see if Le'Veon Bell gets to do something cool. It'd be a nice flash, flash from the past type of performance.
Yeah, I think we're all going to do a lot of wishing for our fantasy teams as we're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
A lot of teams will have their championships next weekend on the New Year, so going to be a stressful holidays for a lot of fantasy football players. But with all that being said, that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Interview Podcast. Thank you for watching our episode this week. We will see you again next week when we recap all NFL-based news, fantasy reports, and much, much more after Week 16 of NFL action. We only have 3 weeks left remaining. We're getting so close to the playoffs. We're going to have a lot of content when the time arrives in the new year of 2022 in January. So, for Leon, Taryan, Oscar Orengo, and Conor Kennedy, my name is Nicholas Hill. Take care, and I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas. We'll see you next year for the last show of 2021.